was on, I guess when people went out back to work on Tuesday, and then I was the WIE Wednesday thing. So I'm hot stuff, ain't I?
What happened?
I said I got all kinds of greetings on
Hi, David.
Tuesday because everybody was off on Monday.
I'm like waving to that computer. You're over here.
I was a Wednesday person, so.
We're going to let a few more people log on, David, and then we'll kind of get going because we want everybody to hear everything.
Hi.
David.
How are you?
Again. I'm well. How are you?
Good. I miss you.
Oh,
There's Heather. Hi.
but she's so close.
No. Yeah, this is the busiest month I think I've ever had in my life, where every hour is scheduled, and luckily we got this
Got you before you were too busy.
Yeah, because I have to travel, and all of a sudden they're like, we haven't gotten your cast physical. You have to go. And it's going to be at 10:30 a.m. on Thursday. And Jen, my assistant, was like, no, he's not. He's going to go some other time. And I think, yeah. So I'm really glad that this worked out.
Yeah,
too. I was so shocked that it was so quick, and I was like, oh wow, it worked out. Perfect.
And that she's in town. I said, good, you'll just come to my house. And and this is a new thing for us to co-interview. So hopefully it'll smooth, How many we got? Get some good people on.
Okay, so really quick, because I have better Wi-Fi downstairs. So you know what? Right before we start, I'm going to grab my computer charger just so I don't die.
Okay. So he doesn't die.
Look at this. We got the Heather and Amy show. Yeah.
I'm going to try to
see how many people. Who do we got in here?
There we go. Minimize and vote. How do we see everyone? And then he'll just kind of just at the bottom and scrolling.
Put that speakers there. Oh, you got it all down. Yeah.
Okay.
He's back.
All right.
All right, we're going to get ourselves started there, David. Fred, let's go throw up Venue Valet. So welcome everybody to the Women in Exhibition Speaker Series, and our special guest, David Dastmalchian, who is a friend of Amy.
Delahanty.
So first we're going to introduce our sponsor today is Venue Valet. And if you guys have ever been to a dine-in summit, you've experienced their product. So let me try to read this here. Venue Valet is a software company that specializes in custom call button systems, digital signage, operations management software, and custom mobile applications for theaters and specialty venues. We offer 24-hour customer service, and I can promise you Amy's not lying about that. They integrate with point of sale systems, and they appreciate their partners and all venues. And I think all vendors, and any of you on here that work with Amy know that that is the truth. We are the creative minds behind the Dine-In Cinema Summit. Just got back from that. It was one of my favorite summits I've been to. So Amy wants us to mark our calendars for Dallas, Texas next year, January 16th through the 19th, 2023, as they host the 5th annual summit. Come see us at the super booth at CinemaCon. Oh, cool. On booth 813J and our happy hour. So yeah, they have a happy hour on Tuesdays, which is a lot of fun. So you can reach out to Amy or venue-valet.com. So thank you, Venue Valet, for being a great sponsor.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. And without further ado, this is going to be a unique interview where we're going to have a double whammy interview with David, since Amy's friends of his. And I'm going to let her kind of start the interview, talk a little bit about their relationship and what she knows about David, and then we'll take it away. So Amy, please.
So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And thank you very much, David, for joining us too. I actually just met David a few years back through a very dear friend of ours. We met through our love of comics and our love for our own self nerdiness, you might say.
Yeah.
So I am a huge fan of comic books, mainly Wonder Woman. I'm sure you've all heard that on calls before. And so David and I met, we connected actually at a Comic-Con that was in Kansas City, Planet Comic-Con. And then through the relationship with this dear friend of ours, we were able to do an event at that comic shop in Kansas City as well, where I actually got to meet Eve, his wife, who is just, she's beautiful, kind, and just a wonderful spirit as well. So I found out, David and I connected a little bit because during conversation at dinner one night, I found out that I actually live blocks away from where David grew up. So we literally, like, I drive past one of his homes where he grew up.
Yep.
So when I shop in the mall, that was where he walked to. So it was a really fun time getting to know him through that. And then we've been able to do a couple things from there. So thank you, David, for being very open to accepting new people in your life, and just being.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the kind words about me, but especially the kind words about Eve, because she's really the star of our show. And you're right, she's pretty incredible. And I'm glad you got to meet her during that day that you helped put together. For everybody who's watching, to give you some context, you know, again, I grew up in Kansas City, and I discovered my love of comic books very early and began shopping at a store that was out in a suburb of Kansas City called Clint's South, which was the satellite store of the main shop downtown, which is the granddaddy of all comic shops in that part of the country, called Clint's Books. So I shopped there throughout my childhood and into adulthood. And then when I started to make, a living as an actor and got lucky enough to work in film and television properties that were inspired by comic books, it was always a treat for me to go home, and this mutual friend of ours named Jim, who ran the shop, he was very proud of, that, and that one of his, we call ourselves Clint's kids, but one of the Clint's kids had like gone on to work in comic book stuff. So anyway, yes, Amy, was just, you were so warm as soon as we met, and I am, really specific and intentional with like the people that I feel like I gravitate towards, and I listen to I think it's a great practice in our personal lives and also our business lives to just listen to that voice when somebody is open and warm and kind and genuine and authentic and not afraid to let their nerd flag fly like you were the first time we met. And I just was like, oh, this is someone who I want to be a part of my life. And then sure enough, when my comic book that I wrote and published through Dark Horse came out, that event at Clint's where Eve and we were shooting The Suicide Squad, and we flew back to have, so imagine everybody who's watching this right now, imagine you've grown up going to this comic shop, it's your mecca, and then you get your own comic book published, and then your friends like Amy and the other folks who were Clint's kids helped put together this event where I walked into the shop and one of the walls was covered with my comic, and we had a signing event, and it was even waterfalls. It was beautiful. So yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to talk about all the things, but especially I really love, getting to talk about intentional connections with people in both.
I have a question regarding that too, and it's really part of our lineup, but I'm really curious. What do you think it's about comics that really just kind of pulls you in? Because if you both have this love, it might be interesting to other people that are listening. What do you feel pulls you into comics?
For me, when I was a kid, the first thing that grabbed me was the art. I was immediately there. I saw, they have those spinner racks, magazine and comic books, like at a 7-Eleven will be on a spinner rack. When I was a kid, I saw Avengers number 249 on a spinner rack. There was something about that art, that pop art. It was like in the 80s when comic books were really bright and colorful with really sharp lines. And I was like, what is this? And then you start reading these stories about, everybody from, you've got the jock hero, the Captain America, to the started out as a geek and an outcast, to the real outcasts and geeks, the X-Men's of the comic book world, the freaks and gizmos on the outside of things, and you go, and they find through conflict and through connection these gifts that they have on a mythic scale, obviously, but that they can find purpose in their lives with. And I was struggling from an early age with, feeling dark, just hard feelings, and so I think that was it. And then there's a community that builds around that. When you go into a comic shop, you find your people. Does that feel like it, Amy?
Yes, absolutely. When you say Clint's kids, we were Clint's kids. Jim was like a father, uncle, all these crazy male relationships and family that you could have. One day he's one type, one day he's the other type. And it very much felt like a family reunion when you came to do your signing for the release of your comic book. And not just in the literal sense, it literally was family reunion for David. He had teachers come and family come and school friends come. And I think one of the school songs was being sung at one point.
my high school football coach came, Coach Fred Merrill, who I was like, I can't believe there's Fred Merrill at a comic book shop. And it was so wonderful. It was
and
so
is that comic shop the only one like in its neighborhood?
Clint's Comics is actually the oldest brick and mortar comic shop in the nation. So we celebrated 50 years about 3 years ago. So
Wow.
We celebrated the 5th. So it's a bittersweet story where I was home. We had this incredible dinner that Jim insisted on paying for everybody to come out to eat at his favorite barbecue place. And
Brian's.
there was 30 of us, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a magical night of just telling stories and laughing and, and then I went back to Los Angeles and I was working on some cool superhero project or another that I was excited to tell Jim about. And I was, I knew that my comic was going to be coming. So I was excited too, that down the road we'd get to, I didn't think we'd have an event like we did. I just imagined the dream of going to the shop and seeing my comic like on the row of comics for sale and being like, wow, what a full circle life moment. But then, I was at a business meeting and I received a phone call from a reporter I think it was either the Kansas City Star or one of the big Midwest papers asking me if I had any comments about the passing of Jim Kavanaugh, who was our friend, and I hadn't heard the news yet. So that's kind of how I found out that he had passed away, and it was tragic. It was a really tragic, dark moment. And and immediately Amy and I were messaging and, crying through the internet together. And then, beautifully, it was not more than a year after he passed that we were able to have this event at Clint's. And there's a framed photo of him that kind of was looking down on all of the and I'll take my computer up into my office in a second so you guys can see that I am legitimately a freaking nerd, but you'll see I've got a beautiful picture of me and him that sits above my writing desk every day.
Well, that gives us a great, kind of step into the next question, because, you guys, when I first talked to David a little bit, he was willing to share about mental health. And I think a lot of us want to hide behind things that cause us anxiety or that we don't want the public to know. And David was really willing to share with us a little bit about his mental health struggles. So David, let's talk about that a little bit and kind of take us through the journey of your darkest days and kind of maybe how comic strips or friends with people like Amy that relate to you and maybe what we can take from that.
Absolutely. I think that I was raised in, and I kind of, went through my adolescence and pre-adolescence in the 1980s in a very uh, religious atmosphere in the heart of the Midwest in Kansas. And there was so many wonderful strengths and gifts that I was given by the way in which I was raised and the faith with which I was raised. But one of the big things they dropped the ball on, I think looking back on it, was mental health, because it was always, well, you have to, pray to heal your depression. And I wish that I was sent to like religious people when I was struggling with suicidal ideation at a very young age, and really I had insomnia by 5th grade, and I was starting to have some mental issues that needed addressing by professionals. And there was this stigma attached, whether from religious communities or just our society in general. As a man, there's a lot of stigma attached to this weakness. As women, there's a lot of stigma attached to this sign of weakness. There's something wrong with you. There's something broken about you. You're damaged goods if you've got depression, anxiety, if you're struggling with disassociation, if you have any of the things that are just so much more common now that we have the science and we can understand, how prevalent these incredible machines are. Our brains are incredible things, but they're not perfect. And, they just, I felt so isolated and so alone when it came to my inner time, my private time. I was a pretty outward, kid. I liked getting up on stage. I liked music, but going to the comic shop, finding my, fantasy and role play and D&D and comic life was so important to me, because those are our modern myth. They are the modern mythology. And I found a connectivity to so many of the characters in those worlds that made me feel a little less alone. And then through the arts and doing theater and drama and sports, I did a lot of sports throughout high school. I found, some camaraderie and some bonding, but I never felt comfortable talking about what was going on in here. And I started treating that very unhealthily around age 14 with pot and alcohol, which opened me to this new world where I felt so much better. But I didn't realize the addiction that I was developing, because it really did help me get through my insomnia, my anxiety, my depression. But sadly, as we all know, that's not the right way to treat those things.
The alcohol is not. What was the one that you found yourself most connected to that you couldn't release?
It started with beer. And I'll never forget, I was at a cast party for a community theater production, and your people will it makes me cringe to think about. If I was in 7th grade, I guess I was 11 going on 12. That's so freaking young. But I remember watching everybody with the keg, and then these were really good people, like responsible, nice people. They didn't see me do this, but these were the grown-ups, and I was probably the only kid at this party, and they were in the backyard, and there was a keg in the garage, and I remember filling it up, drinking it. And then maybe you had another one, and then something just clicked, and I was like, wow.
This is
and someone was playing the piano, and people were doing songs, and people were laughing at me, and I was singing, and no one obviously even probably imagined that I was drunk or drinking. That's kind of where it started. And then by the time I got to high school, I was very in a small scale, but selling pot and smoking pot all the time. And it was how I could sleep at night. And it was just a part of my reality. And and then I ended up going to Chicago for a really intensive theater training program at DePaul University. And when I got there, I found I started using opiates very quickly, and that was it. Once
That didn't scare you to start that? Opiates, you didn't think, oh my God, or you just didn't care?
It was not, if it was scary to me, I liked that feeling. You know what it was? It was this notion of all these literary rock and roll and artistic heroes I knew had played with heroin at one point or another. So I thought like, well, if it helped, if it was good for them, like I want to experience everything. Right. Yeah. And heroin, I mean, pot, alcohol, you name it. Most of the like totally fine and acceptable social drugs, most people can do, on Friday nights, and then they have a normal life. I just didn't realize I have that gene, that addiction gene, that I can't do that. But when it comes to things like opiates, heroin, even you guys, anybody who's not necessarily an addict, you take it a few times, it can get anybody. And it got its hooks in me very quickly. And I was doing incredible art. I was learning the power of storytelling. I was studying the history of theater and dramatic literature and screenwriting and film and acting. I was just so immersed, and I thought I had found the way I was going to live the rest of my life, because it really did it evaporated all of my anxiety and depression. And I was what we call like a high functioning maintenance addict, where I wasn't just drooling in the street. Not for a couple of years. I got there, but in the beginning, I was very able to function, and I was creating interesting art. But eventually, that the bottom dropped out, and and when I finished school and training, it was not more than a few months before I was living in a car. I was spending any money that I was able to either shoplift or steal on drugs. And I lived several years that way. And then finally, by a miracle, I nearly died, but I ended up getting committed to a facility, a psych facility in Chicago, where I was able to get off of the drugs. And then I was able to start a new life by doing AA and NA program work, as well as working with a therapist and a psychiatrist. And I was able to reconnect with my family, who I had really screwed over because of my behavior. And I was so sure that everybody would hate me and wouldn't want to have me in their lives anymore. And I say miracle because it really was this miracle where like people from my past took me back with loving arms. Complete strangers who I met through program and therapy took me in with loving arms. Complete strangers through just having to get a job and work, and also science, like the miracle of science, that like how much work has been done on studying and understanding the human brain, and getting really good help was the one element that I'd always been missing. And now in May 10th, I'll celebrate 20 years of being clean and sober. And I am, and I'm just so grateful for that. And all along the way, you guys, the whole time, comic books and movies were this huge part of that journey for me. They've continued to be, and now they mean even more than they ever did in my life, because I know so much more about myself and the human experience, and their power and their meaning to me is like their value. They're so important, and all the people involved with creating and distributing and helping share them are such important parts of my journey. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're talking about all through that, you had that anchor of entertainment, that anchor of comic books that got you through, because we see in comic books and entertainment that even the villain has a heart.
Right.
Redemption. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the good guys have a bad side.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about, can you take us back to where that moment where you really found that entertainment could be that savior to you, that piece that you could continue with, and actually not just have it in your life, but how you could share it with others like you do now?
Here's my thought on film, comic books, novels, TV, storytelling in general. When storytelling is firing on all cylinders, when it really hits its sweet spot. One of my favorite things about really high achievements, great achievements in storytelling is you're sitting in that sacred space of the movie theater, surrounded by complete strangers, people that don't know you at all and don't know one another. And yet, for a moment, during that experience of watching that movie or whatever that thing is that you're being entertained by, you feel a little less alone, especially when you see yourself in the character or the story, or you relate to something that feels authentic and true to your experience. And what's amazing about that is we can have that experience whether we're looking at an incredibly well-produced piece of Shakespeare or the Avengers, coming together to overcome something, or, a kitchen sink drama, like Scenes from a Marriage, or you name it, Streetcar Named Desire. When it's really well executed and achieved, drama, comedy, action, genre, horror, something is reflected in that and we feel a little less alone. And that's, to me, one of the big, if not the biggest dark struggle mystery of this life, is how often we are convinced we're alone. Like, I don't know why that is. It's just such a part of the human experience that the way we're marketed to, I guess, tells us, well, you're alone. You want to fit in. You got to make sure you buy this thing. But it's not just that. It's also in our psyches, in our biology. We deal with it socially. I don't know a person that walks into a party and goes, everybody here likes me. I think we all go to like, oh man, I hope people like me, or I don't think people like me, or it sucks. It's just a part of something that's in us. And I love it when you watch something and you go, oh, that's me. I get that. I feel that. I'm not so alone in this journey. That is the power. So when I was sitting there on that, let's say I was 2 years into my sobriety journey, and at that point I had given up any hope of acting again or doing anything in the creative arts. I just was grateful to be able to live. So I had a little apartment in Chicago, and I had a job where I was telemarketing during the day, and at night I was working in a movie theater at the Webster Place Cinemark in Chicago. I loved it. I could sweep popcorn and sell sodas and watch all the movies I wanted. And I also was afraid of going back to acting or the arts because it is such the business of show business is so demanding, and the art of acting can be so taxing that I was afraid it might trigger a lapse for me in my addiction or mental health. So I was also very skittish about going back there once I had figured out that I could live, sober. But a friend of mine came into the movie theater where I was working, who I hadn't seen in years, a really talented director. And he said, hey, I'm putting on a play. You've got to get back on stage. And I said, I don't know if I can do it. And he said, let's give it a try. If it doesn't go well, then you can back out. We'll have an understudy. We did it. It was amazing. I connected with the whole experience on a way that I never was able to do before I had gotten sober or before I'd gotten my mental health path, going. And I felt empowered. And then because of the kindness of other artists giving me shots and me starting to go on more auditions and my work thriving, because now I was completely in tune with myself and I'd taken away all of the roadblocks that my addiction and my untreated depression were causing, I was able to really find, I think, my voice. And ultimately I started writing more and more seriously. I wrote a film called Animals about a couple who are struggling with heroin addiction in Chicago. It's very much based on my own experience. And everything I write now, whether it's a comic book about a monster hunter or, I've got a horror film that we're going into production on shortly. They're all dealing with these themes that I've been talking about with you guys today. And it's an incredible feeling that I can now tell stories and be part of sharing those stories with audiences,
This leads us into the next question. You shared with me a little bit that you have a recipe for success, and really is a great way to lead right into that.
Okay. Get out your pens and paper, everybody. Wake up. I put you to sleep with my long stories, but here's a good, if you take anything away from this. Yes, thank you. No.
We'll quiz everybody later.
One thing, actually, I know what you're asking, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. I think everybody here will understand what I mean. But the one thing I want to really make sure, and you hear this, it sounds like a cliche, but it's so important. Writing down, committing pen to paper, or if you have to do it on your computer. But I think there's something really nice about a tangible piece of paper, and it goes back to the ancient practice of prayer, mantras, you name it. But writing down your goals, professionally, personally, committing them to paper and putting that piece of paper in a place that meets your eye on a regular basis. For me, that's been at different points my bathroom mirror. Now it's my office. And like I said, in a second, I'm going to take you guys up to the nerd cave and show you my board. But I think writing those things down and committing them to paper and looking at them is so important. I really started hitting that hard when I got into sobriety too, when I was just trying to make one day clean, 1 week clean, 1 month clean. And then with my writing, I need a rough draft by April 15th of this project, or I'm going to submit 5, resumes to theater companies by March 1st. And you hold yourself to it, and you don't always hit the date, and you don't beat yourself up for that. You just continue to use that as an anchor to help you stay accountable to yourself, because no one's your campaign manager like yourself. No one's gonna, is going to champion your journey as a business person or as a human more than you. And so that's the first thing I think is really, really important to take note. And then the other one was, I've built my business when I moved. So I that friend put me in that play. The play led to good reviews, which led to me getting to audition for some television commercials and some small things in Chicago. I started doing a lot of theater. I was able to really get back on my feet as an actor. And then I got my break, which was a very small but memorable role in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And for those of you who've now heard me talk about my love of comic books for the last hour, you know how insanely crazy that was for me, getting to all of a sudden be on the set of a freaking Batman movie. Not only a Batman movie, but one of the greatest pieces of cinema ever made, with one of the greatest directors who's ever, crafted film. And all of a sudden there I was getting to be in that film. And I got this role, and I said, well, now I'm going for it. I want to go and work I want to do more movies. I want to work in television and movies. And I spent 1 year in New York, which was amazing. I met my wife there in 2009. And then we moved to LA in 2010. And I had no agent, no manager, no support system here, other than some people I knew from college who were struggling, so they couldn't really offer me much. But what I knew was writing those goals down every day and finding ways to submit myself for anything from a music video. And I had this credit now. I was like, I've been in a real Hollywood movie, so at least I was going to use that to try and get myself in the door places. But making short films, doing music videos, going to every audition I could try and get myself in for, whether it's to sell a bag of Nestle chocolate chips or you name it. I was going to not stop. And in that process, I realized that building relationships and what my reputation was as a business person and as an artist was going to be the foundation of building the career, because I didn't have pre-existing relationships. I had to find and develop new ones. And this takes us back to the very beginning of this conversation. Like when I first met Amy, going, that's a person, yes, who has got goodness and I'm going to connect with, and we're going to know one another for a long time. I became very good at honing that skill. That became really important to me when I met people in both a business setting and a creative setting, going, not that person, not that person, yes, that person, yes, that person. And it's not that I was being judgy or judgmental. It's just listening to that inner voice and who made me feel safe, and where, and being kind and trying to just be the most authentic I could be. But through that, I started to really build and develop relationships, some that were just for that one particular episode of a TV show, some that have gone on to become lifelong relationships. And then reputation, trying to always be on time, always have my lines memorized, always be kind to people, always be very firm about standing up for myself. That's a reputation that I want. So I think some producers might think of me as being a little bit difficult, and I'm totally okay with that, because I don't like breaking turnaround. I don't, when I see crew getting worked overtime consistently without getting their breaks, I am the squeaky wheel that goes, nah, we're not doing that. Or when stunt things feel unsafe, when contract things feel icky, I want to be really nice and kind to people, but that doesn't mean I'm a pushover or that I'm going to just make everybody like me, because that's a danger in Hollywood. As we all know, you're trying to, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're in production, if you're in development, you're so scared that you're going to get left off the train of Hollywood, and you're trying to make sure people like you while at the same time doing that. And yet it's hard. You have to really advocate for yourself. So relationships and reputation, I think everybody should just try at least once to think about their life and their career in that regard, and think about, what relationships am I really nurturing in my business and personal life, and what's my reputation? It's good to ask. I wonder that, I think about that, and I evaluate myself often, and I'll leave a production and I go, I wonder what is the memory I'm leaving with people? What is that? What is the footprint that I'm leaving behind here as an artist? And the older I get, the older I get, the more young people I have an influence on. I'm on set now with people in their 20s and 30s and 40s. I mean, I'll be 50 in a couple of years, and I want to do this until I'm 75, and then I want to retire, and then I want to travel, and I want to live a really good life until I'm 90, and then I just want to fall asleep. That's my life goals, everybody. But
okay, so I have a question. I want to ask you, what is a one sentence that you've said in your journal that maybe you could share with us?
I'll have to go and look, but I know I was like with mantras, writing things over and over again. So there, somebody might someday, when I'm gone, my kids will be cleaning out my office and look through my journal and be like, God, Dad was a psycho. Because there's times when I wrote the same phrase on a page, over and over and over again. But I had to keep telling myself, this is really simple, but I belong here. And that transcended just Hollywood or on set or in the entertainment industry. It also meant on Earth. There was a lot of time when I questioned whether I belonged here and whether my existence was doing anybody any good. That sounds really sad, but that's the dark.
A lot of us feel that way, honestly. Yeah, that's
Sure. So writing, I belong here.
Yeah, I like
as those three words sound. Yeah, I remember when I walked into this house. I love this house. We found this house. We live in the valley, and when we first saw it, we weren't going to probably be able to buy it because I think we were getting outbid or it was outside of our price range. And I remember saying, my therapist is also great with mantra work. It's it's our house. It's waiting for us. The time is now. And I wrote that shit down all the time. It's our house.
Oh, I like it.
Waiting for us. The time is now. I mean, I don't want to seem like one of those silly new agey people, but you guys, I know it's goofy, but you just keep trying new things. And I'm learning new things every single day. I'm a new app that I'm using to help manage stress and anxiety. I'm always open to finding new tools. So hopefully any of these things that I've offered might be useful or beneficial.
So that kind of perfectly goes in with your I belong here statement. in the fact that you have brought to Hollywood, you have brought to different entertainment sources your mind. We know that there's some dark parts of your mind. We've seen that in animals, All Creatures Here Below, Teacher, some of the films that you've starred in that are amazing. You really fit those roles very nicely. And I think it's because you've been there and you feel that and you can show that experience. So along with that, you bring that. A lot of us have, like you said, it's hard to walk into a place and know that you belong here. So many of us have imposter syndrome. I do all the time. I feel like I'm the kindergartner in the whole group of adults and I don't belong here. So knowing that you belong where you are now, how did that open the door to bringing you back to one of your first loves and writing a comic book series? Tell me about Count
Crowley. I kept telling myself and convincing myself, I belong here. And even though I had been reading and dreaming about comic books my whole life, and creating and telling stories and making movies, I still felt that complete imposter syndrome. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Am I winging it? Because every time you take a risk by creating a new project, you're just jumping into the dark, and you could land on your face. You could land in a pit of vipers. You could land on your feet. Here's a secret: you always land on your feet. Like, when you take that leap to try something new and to take that risk, you're never going to be in a worse place than you were before you took that risk. That is one of the big secrets of life that I feel like it keeps us from, because we're like, well, maybe we'll be okay 50% of the time, but that's a big risk. No, every single time I've taken the leap into the dark, not seeing where I was going to land, I've never landed somewhere that wasn't better than where I was before. Does that make sense? Like, you got to keep. It's the scary part is taking that big deep breath, finding the courage and jumping off the ledge, because you're just sure, like, is this the time I'm going to fall flat? Is this the job interview, or is this the new direction I'm going with my career that's going to be such a mistake? Is this the relationship I'm going to start with this person that's going to, no, you're always moving forward. And so I had this idea for a television series. I was working on a television series at the time. And as I said earlier, relationships and reputation, I was talking to the executive producer and creator of the TV show. And I said, I have an idea for something I'd like to pitch. Can you help me come up with, can I ask your advice? Can I take you for coffee and get your advice about how to pitch a TV show? I mean, talk about taking a risk. Like, that was so nerve-wracking for me to ask him that. But he said, of course, sure. And so we met. And he wanted to hear my idea so he could give me advice on how to pitch it. And he loved the idea. It was Count Crowley. He said, I want you to meet my friend Mike Richardson, who owns Dark Horse Publishing. He develops comic books, which then they develop into TV and film projects. And next thing I knew, I was at San Diego Comic-Con meeting with Mike Richardson, the head of Dark Horse Publishing, one of my favorite comic book companies, and all these great comic book people. And they said, what's your idea? Now, the whole time since I was going to Clint's as a kid, I loved the idea of a monster hunter who is by secret a horror host at night. Because in Kansas City growing up, we had this horror host named Cremation Morta, who I thought was the coolest. So when I got into my adulthood and started really wrestling with the real monsters of my life, depression and addiction, I realized that this story could have true meaning to me, and I could make something really dynamic if I gave my hero not only a battle against the monsters in the world, but the monsters and demons within her, which are her own post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma, surviving, alcoholism, and self-destructive tendencies. And I was like, wow, I know how to make this story mean something. And so I just started writing from the heart and using all of my years of love of genre and horror and comic books. And it's an incredible experience, you guys, to walk into a comic shop and see Count Crowley, Reluctant Midnight Monster Hunter on the shelf of a comic shop is like, it's crazy. And now we're March 23rd. We have a whole new series of starting, which now my monster Hunter isn't reluctant anymore. So it's now called Count Crowley Amateur Midnight Monster Hunter. And she is starting to get sober while starting to learn how to fight monsters at the same time. It's pretty tricky. And I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Well, this leads us up to the last question before we open it up to the audience to say hi to you. We'd like to kind of know where we're going to see you in the future, what movies you have coming up, and is there anything about, your projects that, that we can take away from this conversation and go find you and find
Yes,
the best?
please go see. Okay, so I don't know who in the room reads comic books, but if you never have, this is a powerful, dynamic female hero who is flawed, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve with her. Having a woman editor, my dear friend Megan Walker, help shape the character has been really instrumental in me, I think. And my wife is always my first editor, actually. She knows all the plots and character stuff that I'm developing. And so I'm really proud of what we've done there. So if you can order it online, or you can wander into a comic shop, go to a brick and mortar shop in your town. I promise you'll love it. And in March, you can buy Count Crowley Amateur Midnight Monster Hunter. If you want to catch up on the story, you can go on Amazon and buy the previous issues, which are now bound into a graphic novel. I did a film last year in Berlin and Malta called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is ripped from the pages of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's an incredible story about a ship that carried Dracula from Eastern Europe to London and the crew that he terrorized on the journey. And I play the first mate of the ship, Polish character, and I think it's going to be a really amazing film from Amblin and Universal. And then I'm just wrapping up a movie in Boston called The Boston Strangler, which is actually less about the Boston Strangler, although that's the premise, than it is about this incredible woman who is being played by Keira Knightley, who is a reporter who really refused to give up on covering the story in the face of a patriarchal, kind of misogynistic journalism community and police community in the 1960s in Massachusetts. And she just, this incredible woman, it's a true story, kept showing up at crime scenes, kept writing, wouldn't let leads go. And as much as the Boston PD wanted to say there's no serial killer, or the city and the government were like, this woman needs to be writing fashion and lifestyle stuff. No. So I'm very excited. I don't know when that comes out, but it will be in the near future. I'm sure we're just wrapping up, so hopefully a fall release. And then honestly, like 4 top secret things that I'm working on at the moment that I can't even talk about, but I can't wait for you guys to see. So that's why I've got bags under my eyes. I'm so tired. I'm going from city to city and trying to still be a present father and husband and human being. But I wouldn't be able to do it without my partner. She's the best. And then finally, I'm glad we're going to open up to questions. And one of the things that's really important to me, and I, especially coming in the world of show business and entertainment and all forms, no matter what you do, I would love your questions, and I'd love your just to say hi. But I'm also, really curious how, us men in this industry who want to be allies for our collaborators, for our women collaborators in our professional relationships. I'm just constantly wanting to educate myself and learn about, ways in which we can. So if there's anything that you want to share with me too, I'd love to hear it any way that you're like, what, I wish that more men were doing this or saying this or doing this in the workplace. Because
I can tell you right now, David, that a lot of us are learning how to make it a safe place for men like you to work with us and not think that we're trying to take anything over. It's like, we just want that seat at the table. And there's a couple of gentlemen who've already figured that out with us, but just knowing that you exist makes us feel a little safer to just keep, taking that gentle walk. So I'm going to work around the room, or Amy can work around the room too. And people will just ask me questions or say hi, whatever. So without further ado, this lovely young lady. Say your name again. Sochi. Go ahead and unmute so you can say hi to David.
Hi, David.
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you.
You too.
I've been a fan of yours since The Dark Knight, of course, and I love animals and Ant-Man.
Thank
And
you.
my favorite character from the Suicide Squad's been Polka Dot Man. So thank you so much.
My kids haven't even seen the movie yet, but that's their favorite character too.
Heck yeah.
I like that shirt.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Disneyland, Hong Kong.
We're going to keep on moving on. So Carol, please say hi.
Hi, David. Nice to meet you. I'm from Regal, but being such a great guy that you are, I must admit, you are amazing at playing a creepy psycho dude that everyone is scared of. So I'm going to be the one to say it out there. You are definitely the guy that makes us go, okay, I'm locking the doors, triple locking the doors, and don't everyone come.
Thank you. That means I'm doing my job right? I will say there have been funny moments in my life where I'm taking my kid to soccer or baseball practice or ballet or I don't know what. There's just been times in my life where I'm in a very innocuous, very normal, parent moment, and then somebody might recognize me from probably some scary character I've played or something, and they get weirded out. So I appreciate my mom, who passed away a few years ago, but she always used to say, you're a nice boy. Like, when are you going to play someone nice? And she loved the Ant-Man movies because I got to finally be, even though he wasn't nice, he was at least a good guy who was on the side of good. But now I'm fully back into playing some real terrifying stuff. So have fun getting ready to watch some of the stuff that's coming. I hope if I do a good job, you'll have some more nightmares. So thank you.
Can you please tell us who that character is afraid of?
Which character?
You said Ant-Man.
Oh, Baba Yaga.
Who?
He's afraid of the Baba Yaga.
Thank you.
Baba Yaga. Okay, next up is Nikki. You have to unmute yourself, sweetheart.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. It's Nkem.
Inkem.
Yes. So I'm saying hi from Nigeria, and it's actually exciting to be here. But I want to ask David a question. During your journey with addiction and all, those things that was going on with you, I don't know, were they suppressing the issues that were around you? Were they suppressed because you had to continue until a time when you had to be sober and when you got the redemption from it? But I just want to know that what kept you going on it? Because most times around here, you see people who are addicted to some drug and all that, and they don't stop. Is it that at that time when these things are going on, I know it helps them, keep themselves together and all that. But I just want to understand that why couldn't you stop, so that I get to understand in case you have situations like this. Yeah. So in case you have situations like how do you go about helping such people because they're not stopping?
Right. So the physical side of addiction is its own hell, right? The physical feeling of addiction is a nightmare, and that happens with alcoholics. I experienced it as an opiate addict. The feeling of as soon as you stop taking it, your body feels like I can't describe it. It's so painful. It's so miserable, and it's not just physical. It's also psychological, obviously. But it's a good 7 days of pure hell. Surviving those 7 days is like, whoa, doing it without the care of professionals is next to nearly impossible. Okay. Secondly, the untreated mental illness, like for myself, such severe depression that as soon as they stop taking the drugs, they plummet so deeply that they feel like they're going to jump off a bridge because they're so depressed. And the curse, the evil, the demonic thing about addiction is that the higher it takes you and makes you feel okay when you're on it, when you come off it, each time you get it, your brain, the serotonin and all the chemicals in your brain are getting lower and worse and worse. So your depression is so deep that, again, you need to be you can't just be on I think it's next to nearly impossible to have a person on the streets just go, I can't do this anymore, I'm quitting. Because as soon as they stop taking it, they're going to plummet so far. They don't have nobody or no resource, no tools around them to support them through that first 7, 14, and 90 days of addiction recovery are crucial. And then the last thing is it's the support system. And for me, I was so blessed that I had a family that tough loved me, which means they weren't going to let me come into their house anymore. They weren't going to give me any money, even if I begged or cried, but they always said, we love you and we believe in you and we know you can do this. When you're ready, we'll be there to support you. And if you or anybody watching this right now has someone in your life you love, you've seen them just screw up time and time again, they've been doing it for years, decades even, the messaging that is so important to them is to keep saying, we love you. You're worth it. You belong here. When you're ready, we'll be here. We can't let you in right now. We can't. If you're coming in here with the dope or if you're messed up, I'm not giving you, no, I'm not, they'll come up with every excuse for why. If you just could get me $50, you just give me $100, it's going to help me get to this. No, we love you too much to do that. We're not going to enable you. But as soon as you're ready, as soon as you say you're ready to get help, now, this is what we in the United States and globally, I hope the movement will take over, that we can create an infrastructure where that person who doesn't have a family waiting for them, doesn't have a community, people around them, can show up at a place and go, I'm ready. And we can find the resources to go, step inside. We're here for you. We're going to help you treat this and give you 7, 14, or 90 days of care. I don't care what your socioeconomic struggles are, and we're going to get you there. It's that's the only way, I think, because people come to me all the time like, my brother is an addict, he's struggling, and what do I do? And I'm like, you can't really give him anything. And once he's ready, you keep encouraging, and we have to keep letting addicts know, and people struggling out on the streets, and some aren't out on the streets, some are in Brentwood, keep saying, we love you, you belong here, we're here for you when you're ready, but we can't help you until then. We can't, there's no $250, there's no, we're paying the rent this month for you, there's no, I'm going to pay your cell phone bill for you. That's pointless, in my opinion. And take everything I say with a grain of salt, by the way, because I don't know everything. I saw somebody asked in the chat, like, are we still going to see the nerd room? So
yes,
I'm keep asking me your questions. Keep asking me your questions, but I'm going to take this upstairs.
We have Vanessa next. Vanessa, why don't you hop on and say hi?
Hi, Vanessa.
Hey.
Here's my Halloween record collection, which I've been collecting since I was a kid. I love old Halloween records, scary records.
Look at that.
Here's Eve's office. How nice of her that she has a she let me put this. This is what we take to conventions. There's some family photos. And now we'll go up into my.
Wow.
Yes. There we are. I'm a big monster toy collector, as you can tell. Goals for right now, 22 goals. Just starting to really work on some things. I keep that up there so I can look at it all the time. The comic books are constantly being categorized and organized. These are some of my favorite vintage comics on my spinner rack.
Oh, I love it.
Some toys.
Bigger was here. He'd be loving this.
This is my first, the first comic book I ever got is right here. I've got it signed by Stan Lee.
Oh, Oh, yeah, that's damn cool.
There's Jim.
Yes,
There's
there
Jim.
is.
Very cool. Thank you. So Vanessa, do you have a question?
I first saw you in the Dark Knight. I was 14. I was like, what? Like, I was just blown away.
Cool.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome.
And where did you hear
Are you
about
gonna
this
be-
to join this event, Vanessa?
Hmm?
Where did you hear about this call to be able to say hi today?
Oh, from Twitter.
Oh, good. Good. Well, glad you came on to say hi.
Mhm.
Did you have any other? Do you have a question? Or just want to say hi?
Are you gonna be in the third Ant-Man movie?
Oh, you know what? I wish I were. I really wish I was
What?
going to be in there. I can't. I know it's but I am working on some really cool stuff, and I have talked to some of those folks recently, and I know that they're making something really awesome, and I can't wait for you to see it. But I do. When the time comes, I'm working on something that I think you'll think is really cool. I can't talk about it right now, but I'm going in some new directions in the world of superhero stuff. Obviously, we did Suicide Squad, which was so much fun, but spoiler alert, things didn't end so well for my character. But there are other things too on the horizon that that I'm excited for you to see. So thank you for joining us today.
Cool. We got another question coming up. I know we're cutting time, so we got a couple more. Miriam, would you like to say hi?
Hi, David. It's very nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm excited. I love what you talk about, this whole thing about writing down and writing and thinking positive thoughts to rewrite your own story. I loved it. So thank you so much, because that is very important. And I totally agree with the methods, and it makes sense. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
gonna be
you. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right, Mama T.
Mama T.
Hi, Mama T.
Really have to speak.
You're gonna get
I
your
was
picture
just
up, Mama?
typing and just getting ready to say how much I appreciate you and your insight and your honesty. It's not easy opening up the conversation. I am no stranger to anything you might have spoken or gone through, either personally or through family and friends. And I appreciate that you are an advocate and a spokesperson for how very important mental illness is, a true illness, and not just in your head. Yes, it is, but it's a chemical imbalance in your head, and it's real, just like cancer or anything else. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate letting us see and sharing with us. It's huge, and thank you for being the best part of WE, because that's what this group is about. And I love the fact that you spoke to the men and said, it's not just women, it's men as well. And Heather was very honest about how it's important that we don't know how to say. I said something to a man yesterday, and I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, because I would have been offended if he said it to me. So it is a conversation. It's something that you have to be aware of, and nobody knows what to do anymore. So
we're going to learn together, right? We're going to learn, and we're going to figure
absolutely.
out how to create space and equity. It's equality. My wife was, we did a lot of research together, but she really crushed it on learning as we're moving into this, trying to find a path where it's just not the same people running and controlling and dominating everything. We have to, for the betterment of everything, the human experience, the arts, everything. We need everybody's equitable voices represented at the table. And so figuring out how we do that, and the difference between equality, no, everything's not always going to be equal. That's certain. Certain people are going to get paid more for things. Movie stars are going to get a certain amount. As character actors are, PAs are going to always seems like get screwed over in some way or another. But can we keep people safe? Can we make people feel empowered? Can we make people feel equitably part of a process? And the way that I have seen women treated consistently, and I know it's been going on since, the dawn of time, but watching it in this business, it's difficult to see, but to know that I have power because I am a privileged white male who can stand up and be like, no, we're just figuring out ways that we can ally, and be on the right side of all of this, and it's for me, it's for my best interest, you guys. It's like, I want the best movies possible. I want the best business practices possible. I want the best society possible. One of the reasons so many things about our society suck is because wealthy over 60-year-old white guys have decided basically everything forever. And that's a really narrow, boring group of people to only get their
It's just
voice.
a perspective, yeah.
Yeah, we need everybody's. Not that they can't be part of the conversation, but it's like, we need everybody's voice in here, or else it's just, we're
And
just
we
going to keep doing the same BS over and over again.
Right. And genuinely, we don't want to, as women in this organization, we don't want to take over the world. We want to share the world and share our knowledge, and in return, receive knowledge and
Amen.
work together as a team.
Okay, so
Yeah.
David, I'm going to get 2 more people before we let you go.
Okay, okay.
We don't know who avid actor is, and then we're going to grab whoever wants to be next, maybe Kim. So who's avid actor?
Hello, that would be me.
Hi.
So I'm actually a pretty recent fan of you. I saw you first in the Suicide Squad, and I just really connected with the emotional depth of Polka Dot Man. And just ever since then, seeing everything that you've overcome, all the struggles, it's really inspired me so much so that I gave up acting when I was younger because I just didn't have the confidence for it. But I'm getting back into it now, and it's just been a really fulfilling, cathartic, and wonderful experience, embracing my vulnerabilities and just believing in myself and believing in you. And with that being said, do you have anything to say to young actors trying to find their niche in the community?
Absolutely. You belong here, and you have a voice, and your opportunities and the ways that you will be able to share it, in the beginning of your journey especially, are wholly upon you. I think that creating your own opportunities by writing and producing your own short films, by getting involved in local theater productions in your community, wherever you live, that's the path. It's like, people think that Hollywood's going to show up at their front door and deliver some crazy audition to them. It's just, it doesn't work that way. The way I was even able to audition for The Dark Knight for that small role was years of doing theater for basically no pay, but building a reputation, which then got me auditions for commercials, which then got me noticed by an agent, who then got me an audition for something bigger. So you create, work begets work, and you create your own opportunities. So just right now, find friends that you like to create with and write your own. It doesn't have to be long, a 1 minute, a 5 minute short film, produce something in your, in your basement, in your community center. Just be creating, always be creating, and creating your own opportunities. That's my best advice to you. And just continue to surround yourself with people who support you and believe in you.
Okay, so we're going to go for Kim Cook and then Fred, and then we'll call it a day. So Kim Cook, up on.
Hi. Thank you so much for your honesty between addiction and mental struggles and connections, and how important those are. I think you're truly inspiring, and your question about, how do you continue to support, you're doing it. The things that you do, there's a difference between advocacy and sponsorship is actively standing up when you see things, and correcting them or pushing people forward and moving them forward. And you're clearly doing those things. So thank you.
I'm trying. Thank you. And thank you for saying that. And yes, but I have to keep learning, and I have to keep learning from everyone, from women, from people, all different, I live in a privileged class. I'm in a white American, dude, and the business has been kind of constructed to my needs. So, and so is so many things, the justice system, that you name it, but I want to keep learning and listening. So doing things like this today are really as important for me as I hope they've been helpful to anybody watching. So
Yahoo.
Thank you, Cam.
Thank you.
Last
Right,
question
Fred.
is our Fred. He's our social media manager, David, and he's like he's our token gentleman as well that's with us all the time. So Fred, anything you'd like to say to David?
Hi, David. I am from the Philippines, and I and my brother geek out over your portrayal of Polka Dot Man, and we were rooting and hoping to see more from you on that film. But yeah, you know what happened.
I don't know, man. Look, it's like I got some cool things, but he really did get squished pretty bad, didn't he?
Yeah.
But that's all right. Thank you so much, Fred, and thank you for being there and working with these incredible women. I appreciate it, man.
He's a good part of our day.
For someone
Awesome.
who grew up wanting to explore the creative space, I just wanted to know, like, what does it feel like to transition from being a comic boy fan to becoming someone who portrays like roles in television and film adaptations of the comic books that you might have read growing up?
I know it's a cliche, but when people say it's the dream, it's a dream. It's a surreal dream. And every time I've gone on set or gotten to put on a costume or seen people, creating the worlds of the comic books that I love so much, I'm filled with gratitude, man. And that gratitude is what helps keep me going and get me through when I'm feeling down too. And I'm just out here repping it for all of us nerds. I promise you, there's so many cool and exciting things to come, and I want to hear your guys' stories too. So if you have stories to tell, go tell them. Okay.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Get to your stuff. Thank you so much.
Such an honor. What a
That's
great.
wonderful.
Thank you guys, and give my love to everyone in Kansas City, please, and tell everybody at Clint's I said hi.
I will, definitely. They'll so be excited to hear from you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right. Love you guys. Bye. Bye-bye.